Hey everybody, I'm Todd Banner. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to try and not have this turn into any kind of a rant. Well, it might. There seems to be a lot of gnashing of teeth, pulling of hair, rending of clothing on the announcement that Panasonic will no longer develop low-end cameras. And first of all, I happen to see a post in in the big online photo forum, which I try not to frequent very often, because frankly I find it mostly a waste of time. But the subject line was Panasonic ends production of new entry-level cameras. And then if you click through to the article and actually read it, it says Panasonic will continue production of current offerings. I think Panasonic and most of the other manufacturers have stopped production on really low-end point-and-shoots quite a while ago. I mean, here we have a Canon Powershot S95, 2010 model point-and-shoot. Has a sensor about the same size as what they put into phones these days. Nice little camera, but if you're using a phone, you're probably going to get better results right out of the phone than you do out of this little camera. Mainly because of the automatic high dynamic range that phones do. The iPhone takes, I think, 9 frames when you're taking a picture and blends those all together. This actually has a high dynamic range setting, but being as old as it is, you have to put this on a tripod to use it because it doesn't take the frames fast enough to avoid blur. And honestly, who's going to carry around a tripod with this? And most of the photographers, I think, that this is bothering, I'm not sure, do they ever really buy one of these things? This is Beth's. Actually, funny thing is I pulled the memory card out of this, and she took some pretty nice photos of the Grand Canyon a couple years back. I'll put those on at the end of this. But really, this day and age, most people, a phone is perfectly fine for what they want to do. And I've seen comments from photographers, oh, they don't like the digital looking photos or the over sharpening. And yeah, if you zoom in on a phone photo, and I have an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and yeah, if I zoom in on an iPhone 12 Pro Max photo, other than a Apple Pro Raw photo, the sharpening, you can see the sharpening halos. Guess what? Nobody who has a phone cares. They don't. They won't even care if they print it. And doubtful the sizes they're printing, you're going to be able to see sharpening halos. There's all these things that photographers care about that nobody else does. And guess what? The camera companies are in business to make money. And since it says they're still going to sell current offerings, you're still going to be able to get if you want a little ZS 100 or 200, Panasonic's probably going to keep selling them. And they're decent little cameras. So if you like the haptics, which I do, of a camera over a phone, by all means, get one of these. Vote with your pocketbook. Buy a little carry-around camera. But consider that the mobile phone companies, Apple, Samsung, Google, everybody who makes these phones comes out with a new model every year with some sort of improvement or enhancement. A new processor, a better camera. Every year they're doing this. There's no way camera manufacturers are going to be able to do that. It doesn't make any sense. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to go back to the time when I got into photography, where you bought a camera. My first SLR was a college graduation present, and I used that camera into my 30s. The shutter finally gave up the ghost, and then I moved into more advanced equipment and finally into digital. So I suspect this little camera, which I carry around with me a lot, will be something that I use until it dies, and that's probably going to be quite some time. The other thing is, if you do get a camera like this, like the ZS 100, you know, if you want the phone experience, you can actually set this up to do it. And one of the things that I have discovered is there is actually an automatic high dynamic range setting on these cameras. In fact, it actually is on the Lumix G95 and the G9. And what you'll read is that the G9 does not have a built-in high dynamic range setting where you can set it to high dynamic range and it'll do it. You have to manually bracket your exposures and blend them later. Turns out, if you're not dead set on shooting raw, that's not quite the case. So essentially what you do is you set the camera to Intelligent Auto, which is right next to Program. And when you do that, on the ZS, when you do that, you can click into the menu, and there is a little, let's see, yeah, you can see that, IHDR, Intelligent HDR on. And if you turn that on, and again, you can't do this with RAW. If you have it set to RAW, that's grayed out, you can't do it. So if I point this at a scene where it needs to do high dynamic range, it will do a 3-shutter, 3-frame bracket. Not as fast as a phone will, because a phone does it like that. But if you hold reasonably still when you do this, it's going to be able to blend them and give you a high dynamic range photo. So interestingly, yeah, you can do this on the G series mirrorless cameras, at least in G95 and G9, although there are 2 different Intelligent Auto modes. When you go into Intelligent Auto, there's Intelligent Auto and Intelligent Auto Plus. And on the mirrorless cameras, you have to have it set to regular Intelligent Auto, which means that everything's automated. Intelligent Auto Plus gives you some additional control. You can do exposure compensation and white balance adjustments, but it won't, that intelligent, I guess they call it, high dynamic range won't work unless you have it set to the full auto mode. It works on either of those modes on the little ZS 100. So anyway, yeah, any of these cameras you can set up to actually take pictures really easily like a phone, but most people, they're not going to buy a separate device like this. So again, it makes no sense for camera manufacturers, like Panasonic, to try and keep up, because that's a fool's errand. You're dealing with a product that is updated every year, and that's not the way it works with cameras. So anyway, yeah, what are your thoughts? Leave them down below. If this was interesting or otherwise helpful to you, hit that like button. I'm Todd Banner. I'll see you next time.
Oops, I almost forgot. I promised a slideshow. So here, in all their 2010 CCD sensor, 10 megapixel CCD sensor glory, are Beth's S95 shots from our 2019 trip to Arizona. So first couple shots are of the view of the Little Colorado River Gorge on the road into the Grand Canyon, and then several Grand Canyon photos and some photos of Canyon de Chelly at the very end. And really, these are pretty decent for a little camera like that. I'm pretty sure you could print 8x10 or maybe even 11x14 with these. So anyway, enjoy.